All right, so I'm just recording the screen on my desktop so that I can post it for students that missed. Okay, so nobody will be in the video, just so you know. Please don't leave the meeting. Okay? All right. So we've got a W-4. Okay, this is the new form for 2020. I believe it was actually updated this year. So it's slightly different from the old form. And they updated it to make it easier for everyone to get the accurate withholding. And I think it's a little more straightforward, so it should be easier to fill out. Okay? So hang with me here as I read through this description of Mary Smythe about her situation, the new job she's starting, and everything that has to do with her taxes here. All right, and like I said, I will fill out this W-4 as we go through it. So, Mary Smythe starts a new job with Quadratic Enterprises on April 3rd, 2020. And they give her this W-4 to fill out on her first day. She has a lot going on when it comes to taxes. Okay? She lives at 901 12th Avenue, Seattle, Washington, zip code 98122. Her social security number is 135792468. So I'm going to pause right there, and I'm going to use that to fill in part of step 1 on the W-4 here. Okay. Zoom in a little bit.
Do we have our own copy to do this with?
So you don't, because I couldn't figure out the best way to share this form that I'm going to fill in. So when I'm done, and at this point it may not be today, we may do it next class, but I can try to make it a Google form for you guys to at least get the idea of filling it in. But I couldn't figure out a good way to give you a copy of this to fill in like that. But you'll still get the idea here. Okay. All right. So first name and middle initial. Well, she doesn't have a middle initial that we know of, so I'm just going to type in Mary there. Then I go over to last name, put in her last name. Her address, let's see, what's her address? 901 12th Ave. And that is in the beautiful city of Seattle, Washington, 98122. Has anybody been to Seattle? Just as a little side note. Anybody? If you ever get the chance, you should. I was there for a couple nights last summer, and it's a great area. Social security number goes in that top right. Okay, again, it's 135792468. Okay, so that's all the information we have so far based on what I've read up to. All right. It says she is married and files a joint tax return with her spouse. Okay, when you file with your spouse, you get some extra tax credits. Okay, there's a benefit to doing that. This means, since she's filing with her spouse, this means her filing status is considered married filing jointly. Okay, so Mary is not single, and she's not married and filing separately, so I'm not checking that first box. But this second box, just as it says there, married filing jointly, so that is what Mary would check off. That is her filing status for this tax season. Okay? So for the next part, it says complete steps 2 to 4 only if they apply to you. Otherwise, you skip to step 5. But let's see what step 2 says on the form here. Okay, this is for multiple jobs or your spouse works. So you complete this step if either you hold more than one job at a time, or you're married filing jointly and what does that say there? And your spouse also works. Okay, the correct amount of withholding depends on your income earned from all of these jobs. So let's see in this situation here. Since her spouse also works, she has to complete step 2. She and her spouse each have one job. So the box for 2C needs to be checked. Otherwise, it says more tax than necessary may be withheld. Okay, so all you have to do for step 2, if you and your spouse both work and there's only 2 jobs, which that's the case for Mary here, you just simply check this box. Okay, checking this box says there's 2 jobs worked, one for you, one for your spouse. And again, this is to give the accurate withholding information to your employer. Okay, so we just check that box, and then we move on to step 3. Step 3 is where you claim your dependents. All right, so let's see what Mary has going on with dependents. Since Mary and her spouse have 3 children under the age of 17, they can claim them as dependents and step 3 and get a nice tax credit. Okay, she has 3 children under the age of 17. So that's for this first row here. Multiply the number of qualifying children under age 17 by 2,000. So how many children under 17 does Mary have? How many, Hunter? Zach?
1.
Careful.
3 children under the age of 17.
3 children. Hunter, I think you skipped ahead a little bit. Okay, she has 3 children under age 17, like it says right there. So we multiply 2,000 by 3 to give her a $6,000 tax credit. Okay, so that technically reduces, again, her taxable income, just like a deduction. So that's nice to have. It's nice to have dependents. Okay, then it says they also have 1 child who is 19 and attends college, which qualifies that child as another dependent. But since they're not under age 17, we move to this next row. Multiply the number of other dependents by 500. Okay, now she has that 1 other child who's 19 and attends college. But remember, that still qualifies them as a dependent. So I would enter $500 on that line, which again gives another little tax credit. Okay, for that next, just says add the amounts above and enter the total here. So the 2 amounts, 6,000 plus 500, gives us a total of 6,500 in the dependent box. Okay, so that's a $6,500 tax credit. Okay, let's see. Almost done here, right? Not much more to fill out. Aside from her job, okay, so just so you know, we're moving on to step 4 here, which is the step for other adjustments. Right? So aside from her job, she had $13,000 in other income from interest and investments. So that would go in this other income not from jobs line. Okay, if you want tax withheld from other income that you expect this year that won't have withholding, you enter the amount of other income here. And this may include interest, dividends, and retirement income. Okay, so she has $13,000 in other income that is not from her job, but it's from investments and interest. So 13,000 goes on that line for 4A. It then says she is claiming $1,300 in deductions other than the standard deduction. Okay, so she's using that standard deduction of $12,400, that amount that should be very familiar to you guys, but she's now claiming an extra $1,300 or $1,300. Okay, again, this amount will reduce her withholding. So 1,300 goes on that line for 4B. Last but not least, she also wants an additional $100 in tax withheld from each pay period. That's our last line here, part C. It says extra withholding. Enter any additional tax you want withheld from each pay period. And for Mary, that is a cool, crisp $100. All right, that goes on that last line for extra withholding. Okay. Then step 5, really the last part, kind of the most important depending how you think of it. It says under penalties of perjury, I declare that this certificate to the best of my knowledge and belief is true, correct, and complete. So the employee's signature, Mary Smythe, needs to sign on this line here. Okay, right where it says step 5, sign here. She would sign here and put the date of when she's starting her job. And that date would be April 3rd, 2020, or 4/3/2020. Okay, now employers only, you would not fill out this last line, but Quadratic Enterprises would put their name here and their address. And then the first date of employment for Mary, which should match the date that Mary put down here. Okay? And of course, your employer fills this out after you turn this form back into them with all of your correct information. All right? So I could put that there, even though I am not her employer, just to show you that should be filled in. All right. Well, that's about it there. Completed form, completed W-4 for Mary Smythe so that she can start her job with Quadratic Enterprises. Okay, because Mary had so much going on, she did have to fill in this whole form. But at the same time, this form is not that long. There's not that much that she really had to fill in. Okay, her personal information up top, one little box she had to check here, and then what, 6 other lines and a signature, sign and date. Okay. So, with that being fresh for you guys, first of all, are there any questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, Isaiah.
When it says she claimed $1,300 like extra deductions, does that raise her like threshold to what would it be, like 13,000, or does it lower it to 11,000?
Yeah, so that would technically, you can think of it as raising her deduction, because that's more money that is lowering her taxable income. Because remember, that's ultimately what the standard deduction does. It lowers your amount of taxable income. So this extra deduction will lower it even more so that she has less money withheld in taxes.
Okay.
Good question, though. Thanks for asking that.